Welcome to the Invested Teacher Podcast with Kyle Pierce, Matt Bigley, and John Orr.
Get ready to be taught as we share our successes and failures encountered during our real-life lessons, learning how to build generational wealth from the ground up.
Welcome, invested students, to another episode of the Invested Teacher Podcast. And my friends, Matt sends his regards. He was supposed to be on with us this morning, but he had a last-minute deal that he had to run out and do a showing for. So we're wishing him and his clients the best. As you can probably tell, Matt will drop anything and everything in order to serve his real estate clients. And that's something, while it hurts our heart, we definitely, I know we appreciate it when our realtors in the past, when we were buying real estate deals, when they've dropped everything in order to make sure that, we're being served in the most appropriate and beneficial way. So good luck to Matt and his clients there. And, John, that leaves you and I to riff on something that has been on our minds because you and I have been working together with a few clients in helping them, both with like on the mortgage side, one specific client who's been looking at renewal coming up and has been considering refinancing and considering some options there. And then, of course, on the other hand, has been looking for some advice as to what do I do in order to begin my wealth building journey? So it got you and me thinking about, usually when you're working with a client specifically for mortgage, and when I'm working with a client specifically to help them with any sort of wealth planning strategies, really, it all starts in essentially the same spot.
Sure, for sure it does. And I think this question that when you met with this person and you start to hear it, we're hearing the same story, right? We're hearing the story of like, I'm in a situation, here's like where I'm spending my money, or here's where my money goes. And I do want to start planning or adjusting that where that money goes so that I can build generational wealth, or maybe I can become financially free, or maybe I can get into investing. Like or maybe I haven't started my retirement planning yet, or maybe I'm like, I want to shift my retirement planning because of changes that's happened. And folks are reaching out and asking, like, what are some of the options I can do? Like, what are my creative solutions? In one of our first episodes, in our blueprint episodes, we talked initially about like starting your like investment funds and kind of building that way. And we gave some tips on how to kind of think about how to create a nest egg that you could start contributing to help with like your goals towards building your generational wealth and your investments. But in this episode, I think, Kyle, what we want to do is like, think about like, I'm already in it, I'm already here. And what can I do now to shift some of I'm going to use that word, that B word, Kyle. I'm going to shift some of that budgeting, around, because I think a lot of times it's like, we look at our budgets, and I did this for a long time. You look at your budget and go, I got no movement. I can't move this money here. I want to do that. So I want to do this. These are like the goals I'm having. I got to pay this bill. I got to pay that bill. I got no wiggle room to work towards my financial future. And it's like, I feel like I can't buy real estate. How am I going to get there? Like there's a lot of like, and then it sinks on you. It's like, I'm listening to all these strategies on how to get started, but also what to do when I'm in it. Because we talk a lot about real estate investing. We talk a lot about what to do with, some of the funds that you have available, but it's like, I got no wiggle room on the budgeting. And how do I like create that wiggle room? And that's what we want to talk about here. We want to help you figure out how to create wiggle room. And there's like two paths, right, Kyle? It's like, we could go down the route where it's like, I could figure out where the wiggle room, or what you could do is like, maybe I should reach out and find a partner, find a helpful, trusted friend, and they can actually look at where the wiggle room is. Because sometimes we're in the thick of it. It's like, you can't see the forest through the trees, right? Because I'm here, I'm like, I think about this, but like some outside look can go, hey, you know what? Have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about that? Let's create the wiggle room based off your goals. So that's what we want to talk about here, how to create some wiggle room, and think about maybe you want to do it yourself, but also maybe where can you go? Where can you look to get some help?
Yeah, the one challenge with doing it yourself is, there's a couple things. Like the first and foremost, I think, is accountability, right? Having the accountability to actually follow through and do it, to deal with, I'm going to be honest and say, I don't think your average person, when they do a budget of any type,
Yeah.
and, we're not saying it has to be super itemized, like, hey, like, movie night on this day, this day, this day. Some people want to see that. You can sometimes reveal by doing that process, you can expose maybe some of the things that you're spending money on that maybe don't bring you joy or happiness, right? Meaning, like, you're like, oh, like if I eliminated that, I actually don't think it would make me any happier, sadder, anything. It would just be neutral. And that's easy. That's great. That's awesome. That's not really what we're digging into here today. What we're talking about is like how things are now, and then being able to look at how things are now in terms of the money coming in, the money going out, and then trying to go, okay, like for a lot of people, very few people, we know Parkinson's law, we've talked about it on the show before. It's
Mm-hmm.
like your budget is going to expand to meet the amount of money
Yeah.
that you have sitting there.
Lifestyle
Like,
creep.
totally, total lifestyle creep. The same is true for time. We've talked about it before. If you have like 30 days to work on a project, you're going to use all 30 days. Now, you might not use it all effectively, but you're going to stretch that project out 30 days. If you had a week to do it, you'd figure it out and get it done in a week. So the same is true here. Like most people right now, like if you were to say, like we asked everyone, hey, how many people have a lot of extra money sitting left over in their account every month? The answer is probably going to be like nobody. Like everyone's like, no, it's like always gone somewhere. It always is disappearing. So really what you want to do is you want to take your current lifestyle. If you're happy with your current lifestyle, right? I'm going to argue most people want to, continue improving their lifestyle. But if, let's say, the lifestyle you have, you're like, hey, I like this lifestyle. I don't want to modify this lifestyle. So therefore, I have no access to any sort of funds that are going to help me really set myself up for my financial future. That part right there, the first step that we need to do is we need to look at, okay, how, like, where is that money flowing to in general? Like, there's expenses, like we said, there's certain expenses like groceries and so forth. Like, we're not
Mm-hmm.
saying,
Mm-hmm.
listen, don't buy the expensive granola bars anymore. That's up to you. You want to do that, rock and roll. There's ways you could do that. But we're talking more or less about where's the money flowing now. If you put all the expenses that are pretty typical, like you've got your regular like gas and all the other expenses you have, even entertainment, you like to go to dinner this many times, blah blah blah, all that's over there. Let's put it to the side for now. But we start looking at some of the bigger uh spends that are coming out of your account every month. Like that might be like mortgage, it might be car payments, it might be student debt, it might be some other type of loan, right? For some home improvement or home equity line or a line of credit. Like all of these different things sort of factor in. And the part that I think is really important, you mentioned it about having someone else that you might be able to have like an outside look, is to be able to help you consider something that may not have popped into your mind. It doesn't mean that
Mm-hmm.
you were
Mm-hmm.
incapable of
Nope.
actually thinking of this new idea. But oftentimes when people come in, an unbiased sort of look, they can look at it. And in particular, people who would advise on wealth building strategies like what we do, we'd be able to look at that and sort of determine whether there might be a better approach where you can take the money that's currently
Yeah.
going out the door and reshape it in a way so that it gets redirected to things that are going to provide you more financial benefit in the mid and longer term.
For sure, for sure. So for example, like I think what you're getting at is when, let's say, like when I'm working with one of my clients on, obtaining their mortgage. So they bought a house, they're looking at refinancing, or maybe they're refinancing their existing mortgage. And they're looking at trying to qualify or prepayment for a home, or maybe it's an investment property, like they're looking at where's the top end of my range. And I'm looking at trying to figure out, can I afford this, or how am I going to restructure? And a lot of times it's like, what we do to having our like white glove service, like our concierge service, is we want to get all the info up front with the goals that you're looking for. Like what are those goals? If I'm investing, what is my short-term goal? What's my long-term goal? If I'm buying my home, like, is this my forever home? Is this like, maybe I'm here for, some time, or what are some of the goals that I'm looking for on homes, but also my future, like my retirement? So we gather all of that information, and we want to go, okay, let's look at your financial situation, and we build them a budget. So it's like, Kyle, we take that burden of them to create their budget off their plate, because that budget building is like we said, we don't maybe know exactly what best options, and that's our job, to help you kind of like understand, teach you, and also show you what some options are to achieve the goals that you're looking for. So for example, it might be like, hey, I've got a car payment, for one of my cars. I'm a couple of years in, I got a couple of years left on my car payment. It might make more sense in our budget redesign if I want to have a chunk of money, right? Remember, one of my goals is to be a real estate investor, or to start saving more for my retirement, like maybe harder for my retirement. I want to retire early, and that's not currently happening in your budget, but maybe because we're refinancing your home, or maybe because you're buying your home, what we can do is restructure that budget so that the car payment goes on your mortgage, right? And it can be like, it relieves some of that cash flow you're experiencing to now rededicate that money over in this area, and you're starting to achieve that goal. And my old self, Kyle, I've done a lot of learning over the last 5 years alongside you, and a lot of times directly from you, being, you being a financial advisor. I've been my financial advisor for a number of years now. And it's like, I remember thinking before all of this information, it was like, oh my gosh, if I heard that and saying like, I'm going to take my car payment, which I know I might have it fully paid off in 3 years, and I'm going to pay interest on that car payment for the next 3 years. And if I'm going to put that on my mortgage, and my mortgage is still another 20 years, I think this would be my old self to shudder at someone and say, look, all you did, this is also our math teacher self cueing in, right? All you did was you took your payment, your liability right now, and you stretched it over 20 years instead of 3. Oh, you're going to be paying interest on that for 20 more years at maybe a lower interest rate, because your mortgage rate was lower than what your car, whoever the lender is on your car. But I mean, you're stretching that interest. And if we added up all of that interest compared to the interest you're going to pay over the next 2 years, it might be more. And it's like, why would you do that? Yeah. Like, that would have been like my old self. But my new self is saying, like, if we were doing that to just free up cash flow for you to like go out to eat, or maybe I want to buy something, or maybe I'm going to do this. But I mean, like, if the purpose is to achieve one of your long-term goals, to make money for yourself in the future, maybe it's to make money now, like with cash flow on a rental property, then it actually might be more beneficial to do that strategy, because now you're going to take that money and you've got this opportunity cost, right? Like, all of a sudden it's like, if I didn't do that, my opportunity cost is lost. Now I've got this chunk of money, this availability to invest over here, which could start making money, which actually in the long term, it's probably going to be more beneficial, because I'm going to make more money than the interest that I'm actually paying out.
Totally. I love that example. The car, the debt consolidation. You hear debt consolidation commercials all the time. And it's like right away, people are like, here we go. It's like payday loans and that sort of thing. And the reality is like, like that sadly is what happens in a lot of those cases, is that people go in and they go in with the wrong goals or the wrong objectives. And if you go into that scenario, now I'm not going to argue, like, the person on the other hand who's offering the consolidation probably doesn't want those bad things for you, and is probably articulating like, hey, listen, like, we want to help you, reduce your debt, not so you can spend more money, but so that you can put yourself in a better financial position. What ends up happening is some of these people, don't go in with that mindset. And it's like, for you, the invested students, I'm going to argue that people who are listening to this show, we say it all the time, you're in a different place where you're like, I'm not seeking money now. Like, it's almost, the marshmallow test is a great test. It's this idea of, if you've never heard about it, you got to go check it out. But this delayed gratification. There was kids in a room and they left a marshmallow on the table, and they're like, if you don't touch that marshmallow or don't eat it until I come back, I'll give you two. And the students who are the kids who were able to like resist, the study showed that in the long term they were massively more successful than the kids who just ate the one marshmallow, right? And you think about that in terms of this show, I'm going to argue that most of you are the marshmallow waiters. Like you are the deferred gratification, and waiting for that, opportunity in the future. That's what wealth building is all about, and financial planning is all about, is trying to set yourself up so you can enjoy a nice lifestyle now. Not a lavish lifestyle now, but a reasonable lifestyle that allows you to engage in happy or things that make you happy without losing it all or spending it all. So the reality here is, like, when we get creative, if we're able to look at a budget, and when a client comes in, sometimes the client's like, I just want you to tell me what to do. And we are very against that. We are unable to really offer them any sort of like specific advice, as you can imagine, because we have no idea what their goals are, what their current situation is, what their risk tolerance is, all of these things. It makes it very challenging. So regardless if someone's coming in wants to be a JV partner on a real estate deal, or they want to come to, John, just for like a refinance for their mortgage, like right away, you're asking those questions, and we're asking them to actually do this work where we can see, like, where is this money going currently, and what is it that you're trying to achieve when you get that quote unquote extra money out. When you put that car payment into your mortgage, yeah, you're right, that debt is going and is now being added to your home. However, I would argue that, hey, if the interest over here is double, and then the interest on your home, you could bring that over and you could do something like, hey, I'm going to increase my payments by a little bit more so that I can still pay down the car in the same amount of time, but at less interest, if that's the way you want to go. Or it might free up that money so you can go, well, actually, I've been wanting to start building my wealth plan, and I'm going to put it into things that are into assets that are going to grow in value. Maybe, depending on your scenario, that means starting with real estate. Maybe it's starting with a small, very small index stock portfolio. Or maybe it's getting yourself going on an infinite banking policy because you want to start building your warehouse of wealth on that front. Ultimately, it all comes down to looking at that full financial picture, and for us to be able to discuss, like, what are the goals here, right? And again, getting beyond, hey, I want to maximize my return. Like, that's not a goal. Like, of course, we all want that. What do we want the return for? And how do we feel about, the certainty or uncertainty when we invest in certain asset classes, right? Like that part is a lot of really heavy lifting. People don't like to do it, but ultimately, when you have an accountable partner or accountability partner, like what we try to do there, John, you and I, and obviously Matt with his clients, we try to be that accountability partner so that we can help you get answers to questions that maybe you didn't know the answer to, right? Like, think about that for a second. Oftentimes people are like, I know I should invest because it will make life better later, but what specifically are you looking for, right? The personal beliefs piece. Like, what is it that you are after? And do we have an actual plan in place? Most people don't. They have the hope and pray method. Do we have a plan that's going to help us get there, where we can actually use probability to say, hey, listen, if this is your plan, based on your current trajectory, you are or you are not going to meet that plan. Here's what we might need to do in order to meet that plan. Or do we need to modify the plan if we're unwilling to do some of the things necessary in order to get to that plan? But either way, if there's a lack of clarity there, right? If the person coming in doesn't have something like a clear goal and they just want best returns, it just means that the work hasn't been done yet. And having someone else, an external partner, to be an accountability partner is such a key piece in order to start getting the steps and everything, all the patio stones kind of lined up so you can make those steps and they don't feel like massive leaps.
Yeah. And that's the service that, that we always want to look. And this is something I think we've become accustomed to when we meet with clients, is to always backward map and think about what the end goals look like. What are the numbers that we're going to need at the end goal? And how can I redesign or design the pathway to get there? Because I think a lot of people are doing what you kind of just said, is that they're thinking that I'm looking for my best return. And then they're like, I'm going to put these things in place, and hopefully by the end of the time, I'm at the place I think I'm going to get to. Right. Like, I think that's a lot of times what retirement planning looks like for a lot of people when they're doing it themselves, without like that extra set of eyes that says like, what are your goals? How can you, like, maybe you've got multiple financial goals. Like, think about retiring early. What does that look like? Do I need to have that 4% rule in place? Okay, if I want to have my 4% rule in place, which is like I can withdraw 4% of my nest egg every year and I'm never going to run out of money. Like, what does that look like? Okay, that gives me a target to make sure I can get there. What's my plan to get there? Like, have I set up, like what you said, those patio stones in place so that by the end of the time, you're going to get to that spot? Because I think a lot of people say, like, I'm going to retire, but they actually are just not looking at the backward mapping, like the restructuring of like, this is where I am. Okay, what have I put in place along the way so that it's almost uncertainty?
Right.
Like your pension does that. If you have a pension, like people have already backward mapped it, like that, all the mathematics behind it is backward mapping. What do you have to contribute now so that you have this amount of money later? That's what we're talking about. So if it's like, I'm contributing to my RRSP accounts now, and I'm going to I'm just putting what I have available come tax season. You're like, okay, what can I dump in there to like help me along? And hopefully I've dumped enough along the way that I can have a chunk of money at the end that fuels my lifestyle. But if you haven't gone, hey, look, I want to spend, this kind of money per year on trips, or I'm going to retire early, but it means I'm going to need to, my pension is at here. And if I retire early, my pension's here, and I want to make up the difference. Well, what's the difference? And then what's your plan to get to that difference? Like, if you can figure that out, you can retire early. Like it's all of a sudden you've got like this, like, for sure mapping. So a lot of people aren't for sure mapping. It's like, what we're doing when we're meeting with our clients. We take the info, we're going to backward map it so that we can create that pathway. If we're refinancing our mortgage, let's take those goals, let's put it into place. We're not only going to just get you a mortgage with a lender, we're actually going to help and teach you what's the best way to do that. For you and your financial planning, you're all doing that, right? It's like, let me figure out the best plan forward so that maybe you're going to, maybe we've just opened up. Maybe those RRSP money to get there is like, what? Maybe we could open a whole life participating whole life policy, like an infinite banking policy, so that we could do that and have access to that capital so that I can make investments over here that makes me money, and I'm still hitting those goals by the end of the time.
I love it. I love it. There's so much here that is necessary and important. And I think, the big piece that I'm hearing from you is like, ultimately at the end of the day, we got to know what is our goal, what's our plan. And if you don't know that right now, that's fine too. That's ultimately what that external partner is all about, right? So when someone comes to me, oftentimes they don't have clarity, right? We say things that are like, hey, I want to have control over my time, like, yeah, I want that too. Like, we all want that too, but like, what's it going to take to feel like I have control over my time, right? Like, these are the questions that we want to ask, and these are the sort of helping us to figure out what that looks like and sounds like. If I have access to X number of dollars a year, will that allow me to feel like I have enough control of my time where I get to decide whether I'm, continuing to work or not, or whether I take, just side projects, for this side hustle I enjoy doing or not. Ultimately, until we answer those questions, until we go down that rabbit hole, it's really difficult to create a financial plan because it's based on nothing, right? Like, we need to know what that goal is so we can craft that plan around it. So if you are an invested student and you're listening to this right now, we would encourage you, hey, if you haven't yet, start mapping out, where is your money going now? And not just like in your head while you're driving. You might be listening to this while, you're on a jog, or you're, biking, or, just out in the back. you really need to sit down and you need to think about, okay, like how much money is really coming in? And then where's the money that's going out? And you can, like I said, do this independently on your own. However, I would argue that there's someone out there that you can lean on in order to do this work with. Maybe it's us. If you want to reach out to
Mhm.
Invested Teacher over at investedteacher.com, you can hit that contact button, reach out to us. Based on what you share with us, we'll decide, hey, are you ready to speak with Matt? Because like you're ready to dig in on that side, or you're looking at, hey, listen, I've got a mortgage renewal coming up, and I want to make sure that I make the quote unquote right choice for me and my family. John will jump in and help you out. Hey, if you're just looking for, in general, you want to start this wealth planning process, what I try to do is I actually try to act like a little bit of a filter for the team to kind of go, hey,
Mhm.
you know what? Like, based on what I'm hearing, here's the next step for you, friends. And oftentimes it might be, I use a tool that I'll send to the clients that I do work with. I'll send you a tool that will help you start getting that sense of where this money's going. And then we can start looking at it and say, hey, okay, here's what that first step might look like and sound like in order to help you get closer to the goal that you're articulating to me here. And the other piece is it doesn't always have to mean work on your end. It just might mean a shift in perspective, a shift in how you do things, a shift in how you move the puzzle pieces around. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what we want to do for those that we work with is we want to help you get more clear on that goal, and we want to send you in the right direction so that you can better understand, where is my money going now, and is it set up so that I can get to the end goal that I'm after. The reason I'm listening to this podcast is because this is on your mind. So, are we ready to do that work? Am I
Mhm.
on the right track? That's always something I always want to know. Like, I'll actually reach out to others to kind of go through what I think about my own situation so that I get their perspective. And there's always something to learn. So, regardless of whether you
Mhm.
choose to do it solo or whether you choose to do it with a partner, accountability partner, ultimately this work has to be done. Otherwise, I bet we're in episode 37 here. If you don't, you're going to be at episode 137 and you're still going to be spinning your wheels. 237. And we certainly don't want that for anyone, because that time is the precious tool that really matters the most, right?
Yeah,
We
for
need
sure.
time, and we need that compounding to take place regardless of what the strategy is. Super safe,
Right.
or a little bit, I hate the word risk, but a little bit more, we'll say less conservative, like some others might,
Totally.
see real estate as, or some other financial classes or asset classes.
I like how you said time there, because I think many of us have heard this statement, this phrase, that it's not, and this is for in any market, but like, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market, and we want to get
Mhm.
in the market, earlier than later, and you can do this. And I think that's my biggest takeaway, Kyle, is to think about those goals. But I mean, by thinking about who that trusted partner is, or who that other person is, or reaching out to kind of get another set of eyes, it means that if you think you're stuck and you don't have any wiggle room, there's wiggle room. Like, everyone
Mm.
has wiggle room. It's just now looking at what are your goals. And a lot of people, as I said, aren't prioritizing what they really want. And if we can prioritize what we really want, and sometimes it means talking with that person, like talking with you, Kyle, we can help decide, like, what are the best courses of action, or what are the best options for me if this is what I want. Well, these are
Mhm.
my priorities. Let's restructure down here to make that a possibility. And that's my biggest takeaway, is it's not
Mm.
just some people can have wiggle room. Everyone can have wiggle room.
Mm.
It's just thinking about what are those priorities first. So that's my big takeaway, Kyle, is being clear on your priorities, and then talking about those with one trusted person. Boom, you've got wiggle room.
You know what? I want to my big takeaway I want to build on that is exactly this idea of priorities. Is, if you don't know what your priorities are, then you're
Talk,
just leaving it to chance, right?
right?
Like, you're leaving
Totally.
it to however it turns out, it turns out. Right now, the way we spend our money is the way that we're, whether we realize it or not, but we have prioritized our funds to go out the door in the way it's going out the door right now. And I love that idea you just shared about the wiggle room, is that you get to control that. But
Right.
you need to confront it first to know where it's going, to understand where it's going, and to know where you'd rather some of those funds to be going. And like you said, there is always wiggle room, and it doesn't have to be the wiggling out of the Starbucks coffee in the morning, or wiggling out, the Friday night dinner, or the
Exactly.
takeout, or the whatever. That doesn't have to be the wiggle room, but there is wiggle room there. But we do have to become conscious and aware of it. And then we also have to think of what is the priority. And if we do those two things, and again, you do it with some guidance, you are going to, like, that trajectory right now, your trajectory is just random. All of a sudden now it's like the trajectory gets closer. The goal might be over there. We might still not be quite there yet, but it's like you're getting closer and closer. But the problem is, if we don't keep changing that trajectory to get on target, after 10, 20, 30 years, you are so far from that end goal, right? If you don't actually fix, the trajectory of that, of what you're shooting for,
Mm-hmm.
do that work now. It would be great if you did it yesterday, 10 years ago, but the reality is it doesn't matter as long as we do that work now. So,
Love it.
hey,
Love it.
hopefully you've grabbed something of value here from the show. If you are inspired by the work you're hearing here, not only, hey, maybe you want to reach out to us over on investedteacher.com. We love chatting with invested students. We have great conversations. We try to point you in the right direction, be it with working with one of us or pointing it towards other professionals out there that we know would help you in your particular situation and case. But also, if you think other people would benefit from this, hey, share the love. Do us a favor and open up that app that you're listening to, and go ahead and leave a rating and review, because that will help more people who are eager to shift that trajectory, like we just said, towards their financial futures that they really, really want to see when they are ready to take their time back.
Folks, we've dumped a bunch of resources over on our show notes page to kind of get started. Head on over to investedteacher.com/episode 37. That's investedteacher.com/episode 37. Also, don't forget, we have our VIP club. You can also join the VIP club. In our VIP club, we sending you tips, resources on, building your financial future, thinking about your finances, but also each month we're giving away prizes to our VIP club members. So for example, this month in August, we're sending out a $50 gift card. But in other months, sometimes we send out a $50 gift card, but sometimes we send out big prizes, like your mortgage payment is covered. So head on over to investedteacher.com/VIP club. That's investedteacher.com/VIP club. Join it, and you will be on our list to get notified when we have our contests.
All right, invested students, class dismissed.
Just as a reminder, folks, the content you heard here today is for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice.